Hi everyone, welcome to the TriEssence martial art channel. Firstly, I would like to wish all my viewers Happy Chinese New Year of the Tiger. And with it comes a new series of videos on my channel where I explain various aspects of Chinese culture. So my channel has been founded many years ago with the main purpose of spreading the correct understanding and combat misinformation within the Chinese martial arts community. And throughout the years, with my interaction with my viewers and commenters and sometimes even haters, I came to a realization that it is not only the Chinese martial arts that often get misunderstood and misinterpreted, so are the Chinese culture. More so by Westerners and foreigners, but sometimes even Chinese people themselves don't really know their own culture properly. Which is why with this new series of videos, I hope to dispel some of those misunderstandings associated with Chinese culture itself, which is a broader spectrum of knowledge than just Chinese martial arts. But rest assured, I am still going to be continually making videos on Chinese martial arts topics. This is just another side project that I'm going to be working on as well. And I do assume that most of my viewers who of course watch my videos because they are interested in Chinese martial art, and by extension they should also be to some extent interested in Chinese culture in general. And of course, if you actually understand Chinese culture, then it's much harder for you to be fooled by misinformation and rubbish that are spreaded about Chinese martial art. Understanding one's culture will make it easier for you to weed out the nonsense from the truth. So hopefully, even if you are only interested in Chinese martial art, you could also gain some limited benefit from these videos regarding Chinese culture. And of course, my martial art videos are usually aimed at people who already spent a good amount of time or years in Chinese martial arts, especially internal martial art, and are seeking for deeper understanding, right? I haven't really made videos that are very beginner friendly. So with this new series of videos, hopefully I'll be able to reach a wider spectrum of audience who are not necessarily seeking for the ultimate truth about internal martial art, but can still kind of understand and appreciate the information that I am sharing. Without further ado, let's start with today's topic. And of course, because this is the Chinese New Year, it's quite befitting for us to talk about what you probably don't know about Chinese New Year. And as the title of this video already suggested, China don't actually have a Lunar New Year. And before you go, what? Okay, just hear me out. There is a Chinese New Year. However, this New Year is not strictly speaking a Lunar New Year. And this is very confusing even for Chinese people themselves. I know this because personally, for many years, I was under the impression that the Chinese New Year is a Lunar New Year. In fact, in China, we even say this in our own language. We often refer to the Chinese calendar as Yin Li. Yin here refers to lunar, and Li refers to calendar. While this name is widely used by Chinese people living in China even today, strictly speaking, it is actually wrong. China's own calendar should be called Nongli. Nong means agricultural or farming. So it's a calendar that is designed to suit the need of agriculture activities. Of course, by now you'll be wondering why it is incorrect to call this a lunar calendar and therefore the New Year is a Lunar New Year, and here is why. So if you look at the entire world, there are basically three kind of most popular and prominent type of calendar, right? We have the solar calendar, we have the lunar calendar, and we have the Chinese calendar, which is strictly speaking, as I already said, an agriculture calendar. So the solar calendar, which is the one that we should all know the best because it's the one that the entire world is using today, even China officially. The solar calendar, which also known as the Gregorian calendar, is pretty much a combined effort between the Roman Empire and the ancient Egyptians. We're not going into details on this. So basically, the ancient Egyptians observed how many days it takes for Earth to fully rotate around the sun, and eventually came out to the conclusion that there are 365 days in a year. And through a long complicated history with various rulers of Rome, they eventually settled on 12 months and the respective days that we have today for each month. This calendar was eventually finalized by Pope Gregory the 13th, and that is pretty much the solar calendar or the official calendar that we know of today. The reason it's called a solar calendar is because it only cares about the rotation of Earth around the sun. As for how many days are in each month, the Romans pretty much took liberty on making their own decision. It wasn't strictly following any type of calculation. This is in direct contrast to the lunar calendar, which are mostly used by Islamic countries even today. Now the lunar calendar pretty much ignores the rotation of the Earth around the sun, but rather focuses on the rotation of the moon around the Earth. And in doing so, they come to the conclusion that each month will be either 29 days or 30 days. And as a result, a full year works out to be between 354 days to 355 days. Now do take note that in ancient Rome they also used lunar calendar, but later on they adopted the solar calendar. But the lunar calendar were consistently used by the Islamic countries, the Arabs, etc. Even up to now, the Islamic New Year are still following the calculation of lunar calendar. So if we were to take the Islamic calendar as a definition for lunar calendar, because they follow exact movement of the moon and ignore the sun, then we can see clearly why the Chinese calendar is inaccurate to be called a lunar calendar. Because while in the Chinese calendar system, we do care about the rotation of the moon around Earth, and therefore also come to the conclusion that every month is either 29 days or 30 days. However, we also take into consideration the amount of time it takes Earth to go around the sun. So a year, in principle, should work out to be 365 days. Now here is the problem, right? If each month is 29 or 30 days, which is determined by the rotation of the moon, then a year should have 355 days more or less, which is around 10 days short to the amount of days it needs for Earth to go around the sun. So this has to be compensated for. So the Chinese people came up with the solution to add in leap year. So instead of a leap month that we see in solar calendar where every 4 years 1 day is added to February, in China we have leap years. So there are 7 leap years every 19 years. And in a leap year, basically one of the months will have a repeat. So we'll have 2 February or 2 August and so forth. And once you have 7 years in every 19 years to have a leap month, then every 19 years the calendar kind of balances itself out and everything works out and reset to the starting point. So it's quite complicated and unnecessary, but pretty much that was how the Chinese were able to compromise between following the lunar rotation for months and the solar rotation for years. And as to why China insists on using both calculations rather than just following the one like either Rome or the Islamic countries, well, the name of the calendar gives us the hint. Because for the Chinese people throughout history, agricultural activity is of uttermost importance. The reason we have calendar in ancient China wasn't for religious ceremonies, it wasn't for any other purpose, it's so that everyone knows when they should start plowing, when they should start harvesting, and when they should store food for winter. Therefore, understanding when a season starts and ends is more important than anything else. And in Chinese tradition, we basically split season into 24 different intervals. We call it 24节气. Now, of course, we know there's only 4 seasons, so this isn't saying that there are more seasons in China than the rest of the world. But we basically divide the seasons up into even finer intervals to have a better control over every aspect of our agricultural year. We're not going to go into details on that topic in this video, but just know that Chinese culture has always cared the most about agriculture, and that's why we stick to this hybrid calendar that combines both solar and lunar rotation. And this is why, strictly speaking, China does not have a lunar calendar because the Chinese calendar is different to what the rest of the world perceive as lunar calendar, which are still actively used by modern Islamic countries. In the Chinese language, New Year is called 新年 or 元旦. However, the current Chinese traditional New Year is referred to as 春节 or the Spring Festival. Now, why is the Chinese traditional New Year referred to as Spring Festival as opposed to 新年 or 元旦? We will discuss this part of our culture in the next episode of this series. Hopefully this video has made sense to you and hopefully you have understood Chinese culture just a little bit more. If you find the video interesting, do consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. And if you can support me on Patreon, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any queries on any aspect of Chinese culture that you wish me to discuss in the future videos, you can either leave them in the comments or message me privately. And I'll try my best to cover them in future episodes. Lastly, I'd like to remind everyone that we're still in the pandemic, so wear your mask, wash your hands, keep social distance when you can, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching TriEssence Martial Arts channel. Enjoy Chinese New Year.